So just tell me your name and tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay. My name is Marie Kirk Clunan, and I play tennis with you. That's one thing. I work as a chaplain at Maryview Hospital. I love what I do, and I've got 3 kids, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am.
Okay, that's
because I'm at that stage of life where you don't.
You don't have to tell us. Would you be willing to tell us how much you weigh?
I actually don't know the exact number,
okay,
but approximately 120, 125, somewhere in there.
Perfect. And how long have you been at that weight?
Well, let's see. I think probably for a few.
So repeat that. So I think.
Okay, I think I've been at that weight for about 3 years.
So then just say I think I've been at about 120.
Okay, I think I've been at about 120 to 125 pounds for about 3 years.
Okay, and then what about before that?
Maybe pushing 130.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? What was the cause of you going from 130 to 120 pounds?
Yes. So,
repeat that question.
What is the cause of me going from 130 to 120 pounds? Well, what happened was I had some fat around my belly that wouldn't go away, and I kind of would hide it through clothes and everything so you wouldn't notice it, but it was still there and it kind of bothered me, and I really didn't know why. But then my blood work started showing up some insulin resistance. And so that's when I started to get serious about some things in my diet, and I started on a low glycemic diet. And I reduced the amount of grains in my diet. So that's really the main reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what, if you had to describe your typical day, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, what would that look like for you?
Okay, so I kind of have a routine where for breakfast, I like to have Greek yogurt, and it's whole yogurt. It doesn't have any sugar. And then I put berries on top. Okay. So a different kind, or maybe cherries.
What time do you usually eat that?
Well, so I probably eat that around 7-ish, and I'm supposed to be fasting until lunch 2 times a week, but I don't always do that.
Okay. And so sometimes you don't eat breakfast at all.
I mean, really, I pretty much like to eat like all the time, like at least 3 meals a day and maybe some snacks.
Okay.
So I'm trying to incorporate some fasting because I know it's healthy, and I do that some, but I'm not great about it every week.
Okay. So you would say a couple times a week you don't eat breakfast, and then the other days you will eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
I would say most days I eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and occasionally I skip breakfast because my doctor wants me to do that, but I'm just not that disciplined to always do it twice a week. Yeah.
So on the days that you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, let's go through that routine. So breakfast, you eat a Greek yogurt with no sugar, like the plain, and so then just
whole.
Say
I'll eat a Greek.
Start over. So say so a typical day for me.
So a typical day for me will be I will eat around 7 a.m. I would eat Greek yogurt, whole milk, with no sugar added, and then berries or some kind of seasonal fruit on top.
Okay. Then what does lunch look like?
So for lunch, since I'm working now, I'm typically having leftovers from the night before. So I'll have something that I can heat up. It could maybe be a soup. I like sweet potatoes, just whatever I had the night before. And so for dinner, I try to eat as much fish as possible. And I also try to eat a lot of greens, like dark greens, like leafy greens. Kale is a big thing in our house. I also like collard greens, turnip greens, any kind of dark greens. And I just push that into my diet as much as possible. Sometimes I'll eat salads, and a little bit of rice, maybe a little bit of cornbread, different grains, but not that much.
So if you had to say how much grains you would eat in your daily diet, how much would that be? Like 10% of your diet would be grains, or?
I mean, I would say like 1 serving a day.
Okay,
Not really.
If I had to say how much.
Okay, if I had to say how many grains I have in a day, it's probably just about 1 serving a day.
So one serving would be like how much in your mind? Like a small little bit of rice or
Maybe a half of a cup.
half of a cup of grains?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what about sugar? Like for
Sugar
sweets,
is
so
the
like-
big change that I made. So when I went on this diet, I reduced the sugar a lot. So I'll probably have like no more than 20 grams of sugar a day. And most of my sugar I try to get from Whole Foods, like from sweet potatoes or some kind of vegetable that has some sweet in it, but not very much actual sugar at all.
So let's say you go to a birthday party and they have cake.
Yeah, I very rarely eat cake, and also I'm gluten-free, so it's easy for me to resist temptations like that because I don't eat gluten, and most of the time the cakes are gluten.
Gotcha.
So that's why I told
So
you.
like what about when you are really craving something? Do you crave something sweet like every day? Do you crave it once a week? How often do you crave something sweet?
Well, like literally right after I told you I would have this interview, I started craving sweet stuff. So I ate like half a chocolate bar and I totally went off my diet. But the good thing is it's sort of passed. But I also made birthday cakes for 2 family members and they were gluten-free, but they had sugar. So, I went off the diet a little bit, but I think I've been so stable that, my body could handle that and hopefully I'll get back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that, with my blood work and, the things going on with my body that I need to keep sugar down. I can really feel it when I have sugar. Yeah. And also, I don't know if this interests you or not, but I noticed a big difference in my athletic performance when I went on the diet.
Mm-hmm. When you went on just eating cleaner and not
Yeah,
sugar.
and that's how I would describe how I eat, is I eat very clean. Like most of the meats I have are pasture raised or grass-fed beef, organic vegetables as much as possible, just nothing processed or added. And I have to make a lot of my own food, so it's work, but I kind of eat leftovers and do it that way. Okay.
So if you had to describe when you eat, so like a lot of people eat when they're just for emotional reasons.
Right.
And some people eat only when they're physically hungry. Would you
Yeah.
say, I only eat when my body's physically hungry?
No, I definitely eat for emotional reasons. Definitely.
Mhm.
And I wish I didn't so much, but yeah.
Okay, so describe that.
I guess like with the holidays coming up, there's been more stress. And so that's probably part of the reason why I wanted like half a chocolate bar. And just also I noticed with my job, I'm on call and at night once a week. And so when I'm not getting enough sleep, that will trigger more cravings for sugar.
So you literally have to be on call where, like, if someone calls you, you would.
Yes, usually if I'm on call, I'm the only chaplain in the hospital, so if there's a death or something like that, I will respond and be there for the family. And it doesn't matter what time it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So we have a hunger scale
Okay.
where 0, like let's say 0 is hamster hungry. On a scale of 0 to 5, 0 being like I'm ravenously hungry, and 5 being I'm stuffed, where do you normally start eating and when do you stop eating?
I probably start at 2 or 3, and I stop usually at 4.
Okay. Perfect. How do you know that when you're full? How do you know that you're starting to get full?
That's a really good question. I think that I also have autoimmune disease, so that's one of the reasons why I have to watch my diet so much, and the gluten and everything else. So
what is the autoimmune disease that you have?
an underactive thyroid. Yeah. And so because of that, and I've had it for a long time, that's why I've experimented so much with my diet. And what was your question again? Oh, I know what I was going to say is that I think maybe it has thrown off my ability to detect to feel that to some degree, like how hungry I am or when I'm full and things like that. So, I definitely, think about that.
Okay. So how often would you say you ever like overeat? Like where you get to the point where you're like Thanksgiving Day full, where you're like, oh my gosh, I ate way too much food. Does that happen like, would you say that happens like once a year, once a month, never? What would you say?
Maybe once every couple months. But because I eat so clean, it's actually really hard to get that. Like it's hard to overeat when you're not eating anything bad.
So, let's say when you go to a restaurant, are you saying, okay, I'm gonna pick the cleanest thing that I can eat, but that's still gonna really satisfy me? So like, for example, you would say, like, am I craving meat? Like if I'm craving a steak, or I'm craving potatoes or whatever. So do you really look at that and go, I'm craving this or craving that? How do you decide what you're going to order off the menu?
I mean, sometimes because, I eat that way, my choices are limited. So that can affect the menu. I mean, gluten-free knocks a lot of things out right there. So when I look at the choices I have, I'm definitely like, what do I like? What do I want to eat? And then I'm balancing that with like, okay, a fish would be good for me. Like, it's just such a good protein. And I think everybody's body is different. But for me, like, I know that eating a lot of fish and vegetables is good. So I'll kind of push that for myself. But if I really want a pizza every now and then, a gluten-free pizza, I'll eat that.
Okay, and is there besides gluten, like, is there anything else that you avoid? Like, do you avoid dairy, or what else do you try to avoid?
Yeah. I avoid gluten completely and very strictly, but I limit dairy pretty much, other than Greek yogurt, because I think my main intolerance is to whey, which is taken out of Greek yogurt. So I eat that, but other dairy I don't really have very often. Yeah.
Gotcha. Or would you say like, even if I don't really like it, I'll eat it?
Okay, I love food, so I have to say it would mostly be 4s and 5s. Yeah.
Okay, so start over. So I would just say like, I want to make sure that every bite that I eat is either a 4-star or a 5-star. Like, okay. I don't want to eat foods that, if it's not that good, I'm just gonna leave it.
Yeah. If I really like food and I want it to taste good, so I typically like it to be a 4 or a 5. And if it's not, I'm probably not going to be very happy with it and may not even eat it.
So, if you were going to say, like, if you had a plate of food, and you were going to look at that plate, would you say, I'm going to eat only the best parts? Like, would you say, like, I'm going to eat the best parts of the plate first? Like, let's say you had a plate of food, right?
Okay.
And then, let's say in your mind, let's say you had a steak, a vegetable, and a potato.
Yeah.
And you had a salad.
Okay.
Would you go, I'm gonna eat the best parts first, like whatever I'm really wanting, and fill up on what I really want first? Or how do you decide? Would you say, okay, I'm gonna look at that food and go, okay, I don't want to fill up on salad because I want to make sure I have enough room for a little bit of steak and a little bit of potatoes and a little bit of...
No. When I look at a plate, I'm going to eat what I like. So everything on there is going to be good for me, and I'm probably going to eat it all. I try to set it up that way. And yeah, by the time I get to dinner, I'm pretty hungry. So I'm going to eat everything just in the order of what I like.
Okay. And do you count calories at all?
Not really.
Okay, so just repeat that. Say, I don't count calories.
I don't really count calories at all.
Okay. Do you kind of just like estimate it a little, or are you like?
No, I don't count calories at all, but I do count sugar. And one of the things I was going to tell you is that once I took the sugar way down in my diet, I could actually taste a lot of food better, enjoyed my food more.
So when you go to a restaurant, you know, a lot of times restaurants put a lot of sugar in the food.
Yeah.
You know? So do you say anything like, you know, no sauces, or, you know, no this or no that, or do you just kind of order it how it is?
If something has a lot of sugar in it, I will ask to not have that. Or, I mean, occasionally I might have a sauce that has sugar, but I won't have it a lot.
Now, how often would you say you go out to eat?
Probably, I go out to eat probably once, twice, maybe 3 times a week, depending on what season it is, if it's like a busy season with my kids, with their sports teams. But that's it. Really not a whole lot. We're cooking a lot at home.
Do you feel like you're a mindful eater? Like you're really like paying attention to your food, and like when you're eating, you're like, you know, really looking at the food and tasting. Like, do you eat really fast or really slow?
I mean, I'm more of a person that would just wolf it down. I used to do that when my kids were young because I didn't have any time to eat. And I think that was bad for me. So I really try to slow down more now. But that's a discipline for me. I tend to eat fast. Mm-hmm. And I just think people are different. That it's just more of a personality.
Okay. And would you say that, so how do you know when it's time to stop eating? Because if you eat too fast, do you just kind of look at that size plate and go, okay, I'm not totally full right now, but I know in a little bit I'm going to be full?
I mean, sometimes I'll eat till I'm kind of overfull, but then I'll feel it the next morning. So maybe, you know, it just kind of catches up with me. So if I eat too much that night, maybe eat less the next day, or just try to pay attention. But I'm not like gauging it constantly. I usually just put a plate full of food of what I think I want to eat, and I eat that. And then the hardest time I have is with like I have things like cornbread that I could just eat a lot of that kind of stimulates cravings for me. So I just have to be careful with that, because that can kind of throw me off in terms of like, am I full or am I not full, and do I just kind of crave more?
So what would be like if you were gonna have, like, what are some things that you don't eat a ton of it, but you do eat some because it's like you love it? Like, those are the kind of things. So like, name some more things. Like, some of the things I really love that I do allow myself to splurge on.
Yeah.
Is I don't eat tons of it, but I do like it. I like this or I like that.
Yeah.
How often do you have it?
Okay, so foods that I really like that I don't eat that often, but I kind of will splurge on, is definitely dark chocolate, or any kind of chocolate. Sometimes a pizza, or, you know, bread items. And I don't eat gluten. They'll be gluten-free, but it'll be like more of a pastry type item.
Awesome. Yeah. This is kind of an intimate question, but you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. But do you feel like you poop regularly? Like, are you like, you know, do you feel like you, like, they say that you should actually poop 3 times. Like, the healthiest person is someone who poops. Like, my mom, she'll tell you, she's like, the reason I'm in great health is because I poop 3 times a day. So can you share, like, you know, on average, you don't have to say it.
Yeah, I'm not really.
You don't have to say that.
I'm not gonna share that. I'm good. Yeah, I'm pretty much pretty consistent though with what you said.
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have to share that. Would you say that? How often would you say you exercise?
Well, it was 4 or 5 times.
So just say I exercise.
Okay, I exercise about 4 times a week, and sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less because of work.
What kind of stuff do you do?
So tennis as much as I can, and then, you know, maybe some other things like Pilates or walking.
Okay, and if let's just say you went to a party, mm-hmm. and they had a lot, they were gluten-free, but it was things like you were starving, and they just had, the party foods was just they didn't have like lean meats and vegetables, right? Like they just had like nachos and, you know.
Oh, nachos I would splurge on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so just like if that, like if you went to a party and they had all stuff that was just kind of not from the regular, would you feel bad about eating it, or you just go, look, I eat pretty clean 80% of the time, so.
Yeah, if I were at a party, I mean, I try to bring my food most of the time because I would just end up going off my diet so much. So I try to deal with food, you know, to provide my own so I can eat clean. But if occasionally I went to a party or something like that, I would just go ahead and eat. I would not. Yeah, no, whatever. I wouldn't eat gluten. And if I liked it, if I didn't like it, I'd probably get something
so
later.
Things like if you were at a party that you would eat that you
Wouldn't normally eat.
So then just start over. If I was at a party.
Okay, if I was at a party, and they were serving things that I don't normally eat, what would I eat? Well, since I don't eat gluten, that knocks off a lot of things. So once again, it just makes it easy for me to avoid temptation. And then when you add in other things, like maybe they have some gluten-free things, I would still try to control my sugar and not eat very much.
So sugar's if you had to say there's one thing that you really watch,
Yeah.
it's gluten and sugar.
Yeah.
Okay, so repeat that.
And if there's one thing that I really watch, it's gluten and sugar, or at least glycemic index. So anything that would cause a high spike in your sugar or insulin.